Welcome, everybody. College Football Week 5 is in the books, which means it's time to look forward to College Football Week 6. I'm Joe with the Game House, and today we're going to take a look at NFL draft prospects to watch in College Football Week 6. Okay, as mentioned, we're going to go over some NFL draft prospects to watch in College Football Week 6. As a reminder, we're only going to go through 5 each week, and we're going to try not to repeat any prospects during the course of the season. So you may see guys that maybe have better matchups, but maybe we already covered earlier in the season, or maybe I'm waiting to save them for later on in the season. With that said, let's get it started here with number 1 on the list. It is Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver out of Texas. He's had some big plays and some big games, notably against Alabama already this season. The Texas Longhorns have started off undefeated through 5 games. High-powered offense is a big reason why. Quinn Ewers is playing well. Xavier Worthy is helping with that. He has 26 receptions, 345 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the year. Week 6, Texas is playing the Oklahoma Sooners. This is the Red River rivalry. There's a lot of hype around this game. These are 2 of the best teams in the Big 12. This is their last time in the Big 12 playing each other before they head off to the SEC. And it should be a shootout of a game. That means that Texas is going to need Worthy's talent to be on display. He has got good speed and ability to separate. He's a deep threat, as we saw in that Texas game where Quinn Ewers threw a moon ball and he was able to come down with it on a nice catch. Currently projected to be a first-round pick, but he could improve his stock down the stretch. There's a lot of good wide receivers in this 2024 NFL draft class as we're looking at it right now. We'll see if some of those guys return to school. Maybe other things happen that change that, but every game matters in terms of building your stock. Maybe you can do something pretty big in this Oklahoma game that helps build his stock up even more. But he has already shown that he is a very speedy guy who's able to get deep and stretch a defense that way. Next up on the list, we have Devin Leary, the quarterback of Kentucky. Now, Kentucky's 5-0, didn't really have a good win until last week. They beat Florida and actually dominated them. That was mostly through the defense and through the ground. But their offense has kind of been inconsistent. We need to see more of that consistency moving forward, and that includes Devin Leary. Passed for 1,129 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on 57.7% completion. That's not the worst thing in the world, especially given how Kentucky plays, but they haven't played the greatest competition. You'd love to see the completion percentage up, the interceptions down, and maybe that looks a little bit better. So he's trying to find his form from 2021. He was a very good quarterback. I believe he only threw 3 interceptions for NC State in 2021 before he had a down year last year and actually got hurt, and then transferred to Kentucky this year. If Kentucky's going to beat Georgia, you could say, hey, Auburn came close to beating Georgia this past week without much of a passing attack. But if you want to go over the hump and try beating Georgia, I think you have to have a good game from Devin Leary. He's shown good accuracy and decision-making in the past. He just has to see that come back. Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, is back at Kentucky. I'm kind of surmising maybe he left a little bit in the tank against these lower-level opponents in the first 4 weeks, and then Florida, maybe he opened it up a little bit, but didn't need to as much because Ray Davis had a good game on the ground. Maybe he opens up the playbook here, makes things easier for Devin Leary against such good competition. Georgia is favored by 2 touchdowns, but Devin Leary can have a good game, maybe get them as an upset win. Right now, he's probably looking at more like a mid-round pick, maybe even late-round pick, but he could play his way up the draft boards if he can kind of find that form again later in the season here and help Kentucky maybe win 8, 9, 10, 11 games. Anything's on the table right now after starting 5-0. All right, Brock Bowers is the next one up, the best tight end in the 2024 NFL draft class. Georgia's undefeated. Bulldogs have not really played anyone tough on the schedule. They struggled with Auburn last week, but I think we all know that Auburn isn't quite as good as they have been in most years in the SEC. Their offense is still finding their footing, and that includes having a new quarterback at the helm, Carson Beck. Brock Bowers has been helping with that. I think he's a good security blanket. He can kind of open up the field on all 3 levels. And, it shows up in the stats, too. He has 30 catches for 413 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. And he also has a rushing touchdown. They kind of use him as a Swiss Army knife. Think of, I would say, Deebo Samuel-esque player, but he's a tight end and has good size, too. The Bulldogs will have a test this week against Kentucky. Kentucky has a good defense. They're obviously going to be focusing on stopping Brock Bowers. And I think his athleticism and versatility could really help them out in this game because we've seen their offense maybe not really hit the expectation level, even with a lot of new pieces. He can be the guy that helps open things up, security blanket, and a guy who can create big plays. First tight end selected pretty much without a doubt at this point, just a matter of how high he goes, how much do we value tight end positions. Does taking Kyle Pitts early a couple of years ago, does that impact people not taking tight ends as early in the future since Atlanta's really not using them that much? that's something to keep in mind. But he is the best tight end in the draft class and could have a very good game against Kentucky, which would definitely help this young offense. Number 4, Chris Abrams-Draine out of Missouri. Missouri surprised people already this year. Undefeated record. Defense has played well. Abrams-Draine deserves a lot of credit. The 2023 season, he has 23 total tackles, 3 interceptions, and 6 passes defended on the year, showing his good ball skills along the way. So, in Week 6, Missouri will take on LSU, who has a high-powered offense. We saw there was no defense played in that LSU-Ole Miss game last week. That's partially because the offenses are very good for those teams. Abrams-Draine will be matched up against some good wide receivers, including Malik Neighbors. Abrams-Draine showed his coverage ability and ball skills over the course of the season so far, but this could really, if he gets an interception in this game, it could really flip the tide of the game, keep Missouri undefeated. And what do you know? We already talked about Kentucky. We already talked, Kentucky, Georgia. If Missouri and Kentucky both win, we're looking at undefeated teams going into next week. That would be a lot of fun. I think Chris Abrams-Draine will be drafted in the first couple rounds of the 2024 NFL Draft. He can definitely play his way up this draft board. There's still a lot that remains to be seen with this draft class, but he's definitely played well over the course of his career at Missouri. Next up, we have Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle out of Arizona. He's a guy who's been on a lot of top 50 boards before the preseason. If you follow Dane Brugler at The Athletic, I believe he was on his top 50 board before the season. Arizona, solid 3-2 start to the season. A program that's still on the rise as they come up with a lot of new players from the transfer portal over the last couple of years. Offense has been defense with some good outings on the year. Offensive line has played well, and that's been bolstered by Morgan at left tackle. In Week 6, Wildcats will play USC. They're going to need great offensive play to help keep up with the Trojans. We saw USC just win a shootout with Colorado last week. Morgan's going to have to protect the quarterback and open up some running lanes for that to happen. Even if Arizona loses, this is a guy worth watching. This is a big game. We'll see if he can hold up against some other guys on USC's defensive front. They'll be going pro despite USC's defense not being the best. He's potentially a first-round pick if he finishes the season well. As we said, top 50 before the season. Shown some really good things on tape. Let's see what he does in this game. Let's see how he moves forward. Those are my top 5 prospects to watch this week. Let me know who you're watching in the comments below. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.